So I'm Jeanette Whitaker. I'm a Professor in Soil and Land Use at the UK Centre for Ecology and Hydrology. I'm based in Lancaster and I'm the project lead for Biomass Connect. So welcome to this demonstration day. We're really pleased to have you all here to show you what we've been doing for the last 2 years. So Biomass Connect is a project funded by the UK government, by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. We've been funded for 3 years to establish this platform to increase knowledge and awareness of biomass crops and to support the growth of the biomass sector. So the project is about £5 million and it's part of a larger £32 million programme looking at innovations around biomass crops as well as this kind of supporting platform. But I just wanted to talk to you first about why a government putting money into biomass crops and why do we think this project's needed. And so at the moment, most of the biomass that we use in the UK is forest residues. So there's about 11,000 kilotons of biomass being used, solid biomass for heat and power. Most of that from forest residues, some is waste wood, residues and sludge. And you'll see the biomass crops number is really tiny, 63 kilotons of solid biomass coming from these perennial biomass crops. So it's tiny, but we need to grow that because many of these other pools of biomass are not scalable. So there's competing uses for the forest residues. There's only so much waste wood and residues and sludge. We can get more efficient at using those pools of biomass, but actually biomass crops is the one where there's real potential to grow. At the moment, the other areas we use biomass for energy are in bioethanol. So we grow wheat and use wheat grains for ethanol in the UK. And there's also an awful lot of anaerobic digestion with dedicated crops grown and used in anaerobic digestion. And so we think biomass crops is this area where it's small, but there's potential to scale, and there's multiple benefits from growing perennial biomass crops as part of farming systems in the UK. And that's good because we need more biomass, but also we want less reliance on imported biomass, because at the moment we're importing large amounts. So it's a third of the biomass feedstock we use for renewable energy is being imported. For example, woody pellets being imported for use in Drax power station, which is the largest user of biomass in the UK. Government particularly are interested in this because they see an opportunity to deliver negative emissions. So that's where you grow a crop, the crop captures the carbon as it grows, and then if you burn it in a power station that has carbon capture and storage on it, you get negative emissions. You're not re-releasing that CO2 into the atmosphere. And government know that we are not heading the right way with climate mitigation. Emissions are not decreasing fast enough. And to get to net zero, we don't just need emission reductions, we actually need negative emissions technologies, things that take carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and store it somehow. So they're all the reasons why government are funding this project and funding the biomass sector. But you can't just burn it, there's lots of uses, and I think a lot of the energy and a lot of the focus for government is around burning and combustion and storage, but for growers, it's not something that we hear people get particularly excited about growing plants to burn them. But there's lots of other end uses for these biomass crops. So there's just a few on the slides here, but current uses, things like animal bedding and fodder, there's construction materials being developed. There's higher value chemicals, for example, in willow bark, and there's chemicals that can be derived that are already used in cosmetics, there's pharmaceuticals. So there's lots of research around future higher value products from these crops, and we're not focused on those uses, we're focused on how to grow these crops well. But I just wanted to talk to you about where the benefits are of these crops and where we as researchers and government and stakeholders see the potential markets in the future for these crops. So the kind of core uses at the moment on the left, future uses in the middle around textiles, packaging, platform chemicals, but also these environmental end uses. So actually planting these crops can have benefits on farms. So there's lots of work in Ashby in Northern Ireland around using willow for buffer strips to protect watercourses against nutrient pollution. And we know in Northern Ireland they've got massive issues with nutrient pollution from their agriculture, with Loch Ness turning green. I don't know if you've seen the photos in Northern Ireland. So wastewater management, water filtration, these crops have got benefits there. And also phytoremediation. They can cope being planted onto pretty crap land, polluted land, and they can actually take up and stabilise polluted soils. So that's just some of the selling points as I see it of biomass crops. So what's Biomass Connect? Well, we're a consortium of 8 partners along the bottom, with the UK CEH leading this project. And as I said, we've been funded to raise awareness of the crops and improve knowledge. How we're doing that is to establish these 8 demonstration sites, which are on the map here, so across the 4 nations of the UK. So that 4 nations footprint is really important to us. We've got 4 sites in England, 2 in Scotland, 1 in Wales and 1 in Northern Ireland. And at each of the sites, the crops are planted in the same formats, in the same way. So what you see here in Newcastle is the same as you would see at any of these other sites. And this enables us to compare geographically how are all these crops performing, so that a farmer that visits us in the west of Scotland knows that what he's seeing is right for his region. We're not showing him what grows well in Buckinghamshire, in a flinty soil and, nowhere near as much rain as there is in Ayr. And so that geographic perspective on the performance of the crops is really important. And these sites are being set up for demonstration for days like today, but also importantly, we're monitoring them and we're collecting data around impacts on the soil and climate, so that we can look at the productivity in relation to the conditions, the environmental conditions of the sites. So that's just a summary of the sites. So these are the crops which have grown at each of the sites. So these are the things you'll see today. Some of them are pretty small, some have just been planted this year. The cedar and silphium have gone in this year. Most things were planted last spring, and hopefully you'll be impressed by the establishment that we've got from the crops. So on the left, short rotation coppice and short rotation forestry species. The difference just being the harvest interval, how long they're grown for before they're harvested. And on the right, we've got these perennial grasses and forbs. And we've planted over 1 million plants. It's been a really busy 2 years since the project started, which is kind of crazy. But despite droughts in the spring that we planted and then floods this spring, the crops are doing pretty well in most places, and we're really happy with the establishment. We've had to do some gapping up, which is completely normal across the sites, and we've had different issues with different crops in different places, which is all information we're going to capture in a learning document about our experiences of procuring the planting materials and our experiences of planting. In addition to the sites and the demo events like today, we've also got a website, and I'm hoping that most or some of you will have visited the website. It's growing all the time, but it's got a collection of technical articles and fact sheets on different crops. We've got a what's on calendar, not just for our own events, but anything to do with the biomass industry that we come across gets posted on there. And any of our webinar programs and things like that are all advertised through the website. We have a newsletter, which is 3 times a year, I think. So if you want to sign up for the newsletter, you're not going to get spammed regularly, but it is a useful kind of capturing of the latest stuff that's going on in the newsletter and the latest happenings in the sector. And just to point out, there are other demonstration events going on this year. I think the one there is one of colleagues, BGI, Bioglobal Industries in Chesham in Buckinghamshire, where they're focusing really on the technologies and innovations around biomass crops. But they've got host one of our hub sites, and Matt and Steve Hunt are here today from BGI. In the winter, when it's not so nice to be wandering around a field site, we've got a webinar programme, and all the webinars that we've done so far are on the YouTube site. There's all different themes and topics. There's usually 2 speakers in each one. They're quite engaging little things. So if you are interested in a particular topic, like biodiversity from biograss crops, for example, you can go on the YouTube and see those webinars. And there's a whole range of social media, whatever your poison, you can sign up, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, etc., etc. So please visit the website. And that's it. That's just a short intro to the project and what we're going to cover today. We'd be really interested in your feedback on today, the event and the content. And if there's things that you want to know about biomass crops, which we can't tell you or aren't on the website, please ask the questions, because it helps us know what information to bring onto the website for future to help grow people's knowledge. So that's it, I think. Who's in charge of what's next? Is it yet?